Hello friends, today we are going to deal with a few concepts related to groups. Before we actually introduce the concepts, I am going to picturize a situation for you. It is a Sunday afternoon, you have had your lunch, a nice meal, and you are relaxing, you want to watch TV. So, you go sit down and switch on the TV. Now, when you do that, how do you see yourself? Sitting all prim and proper or adopting a more relaxed pose? Usually what happens when someone is sitting within their house watching TV, the pose they usually take is maybe probably one leg draped over the armrest or in a half supine pose, that is almost as if you are half asleep, or in some other pose which you feel is very convenient. So, the sofa doubles up as a bed, right. This is the kind of posture you take when you are all alone and sitting and watching the TV. Now, add some more to this. The bell rings and your mother's friend walks in. She is her colleague and she has come to discuss something. What do? As soon as the lady walks into the room, what is your first reaction? You quickly change your pose. You sit in a posture which is more socially acceptable. You sit in a way which is designed or which is designated as a proper posture. Sofa is used as a sofa, as a sitting instrument and not for lying down. And you would probably turn down the volume of the TV which was blaring earlier would be turned down. What has happened here? As soon as a second person has entered the environment, there has been a change in your behavior. This is the concept we will be beginning with today in this session. This session is what is called social facilitation. What happens in social facilitation? Social facilitation refers to the effect of the presence of others. Whenever we do something, we act in a certain manner when we are alone and act slightly differently when there are others around us. So, the mere presence of another person is enough for us to change our behavior patterns, and if the person belongs to our own group, the shift in behavior is much more. Let us assume it is an office scenario. All the people have come in, they are sitting in their seats, it is just after 9 o'clock, the office hours have just started, but along with that there is a general sharing of hello, hi and good mornings that you hear around, people probably loitering around. But the minute there is some indication that the head of the department or the boss or a superior or somebody else is walking in, people quickly settle down. Again, within the group, someone of a higher status has walked in, and so immediately people's behavior has changed. This is exactly what social facilitation talks about. When we are talking about social facilitation, why does this happen and how does this happen? Sociologists and psychologists wanted to understand this shift in people's behavior in the presence of other individuals. Several theories have been proposed to explain why people behave differently when they are with other people. The first theory that we will be looking at today is what is called the drive theory. The drive theory of social facilitation suggests that the presence of others is arousing. Our emotions are aroused, feelings are aroused, and accordingly this has an effect on individuals' performance. Now, when we say it has an effect on performance, how does this affect performance? It could affect performance in two ways. It could either inhibit performance or it could improve the performance of a person in a particular situation. How would we decide whether the presence of another person is inhibiting performance or improving performance? Now, this would depend on the response that is being made. If the dominant responses are correct, then the presence of others actually improves performance. And if the dominant responses are incorrect in that particular situation, then what happens? It inhibits performance. Let me give you an example. Let us say there is a practice for the school play going on. Suppose you have a very short part and you have learnt your lines and you have been practicing for the last 10 days, and at that point you have an audience. Then what happens? When you have an audience, you want to say the lines with some more emotion, some more emphasis, so that the people sitting there can comment and get back to you and tell you you are doing a wonderful job. Okay. So, the same situation, depending on whether the dominant response is correct or incorrect, could inhibit or improve performance. This is what the drive theory of social facilitation is all about. Now, there is another view of how social facilitation occurs. This is what is called the evaluation apprehension view. What is evaluation? Evaluation means judging. Evaluation means somebody is standing in judgment. Apprehension. Apprehension is some kind of inhibition, some kind of fear, some kind of a feeling that you are not comfortable. So, evaluation apprehension view says that in the presence of others, people experience feelings of discomfort. Why? They feel that the persons who are standing in front of them are going to evaluate them, are going to judge them, and because of that they experience anxiety. When anxiety is experienced, it affects the performance, it affects a shift in behavior patterns, and this shift in performance, this shift in behavior patterns is what we see when a person is in the midst of a group. So, this is the focus of the evaluation apprehension viewpoint. In fact, very interesting experiments were conducted to test this particular view. What they did was they had multiple scenarios. In one scenario, there was an audience who was sitting and looking at or very seriously trying to focus on what a person was doing. That was one situation. Another situation was the audience was totally engrossed in discussing among themselves, talking among themselves. So, basically the impression that was created in that particular situation was that there are people in the same room, but they are not interested in what you are doing. This was a second situation. A third situation was where the audience was actually blindfolded. What do you think happened? In the first case, when the audience was paying attention to what the actors or the participants were doing, there was a distinct shift in behavior, a distinct shift in performance. But when the audience was blindfolded and when the audience was not paying attention, there was not much of a change in the behavior of the participant. So, this particular experiment actually reinforced the evaluation apprehension view of social facilitation. So, what does this teach us? We tend to behave differently when there are others around us and when we feel that they are noticing us. If we get the idea that they are not noticing us, or if we are comfortable with the idea that they cannot see what we are doing, in such cases our performance and our behavior does not really change much. There is a third viewpoint which tries to explain how social facilitation happens. This is what is called the distraction conflict theory. This theory says that social facilitation stems from conflict that is produced when individuals pay attention to the others who are present there and also to the task that they are doing. So, when you are doing something and a second person walks in, what happens? Your attention gets diverted. Earlier, you were focusing only on the task that was being performed. It could be you're writing something, you're listening to the music, you're watching TV, you're paying attention to what the teacher is saying. It could be anything, the task being performed at that particular point in time. Now, when another person walks in or when a group of people walk in or in a classroom situation, the teacher has started her lecture, you're paying attention and somebody walks in late. What happens? Immediately, your attention is divided between what the teacher is saying and also who has come in, how are they dressed, where are they walking up to, where are they going to sit. Unconsciously, we start noticing all these things as well. Now, this person could probably walk up to the chair next to you and would want to sit there. So, that means your attention is diverted to removing your bag from the chair, moving a little so that you can accommodate her. And in the bargain, you are also listening to what the teacher is saying, but what is happening is there is a split, a conflict in the attention you are paying to two different things. Now, this creates a distraction. So, this distraction conflict theory says that we behave differently when others are around us because our attention is divided between what they are doing and the task on hand. Now, others, a mere presence is enough to create what is called a cognitive overload. Cognitive overload means the additional requirement that you are placing on your cognitive processes over and above what you had been doing earlier. You are now concentrating both on what your teacher is saying as well as on what is happening. Why is that person standing? Does he have a notice in hand? Is he or she a classmate? Is he an attendant who has come to declare a holiday? All kind of things. So, this distraction actually causes you to change your behavior in that given situation. And then what happens? We only focus on essential cues and ignore the non-essential cues. When there is a distraction, when there is a third person who walks in as part of the social facilitation process, we focus on the essential cues and ignore the non-essential cues. So, the teacher's voice is important, the information being imparted is important, you focus on that, but you are no longer looking at the faculty member. Similarly, the person who is standing there, his or her identity is important, so you quickly look at the person without really taking in other details like their dress, appearance and other such things. Similarly, if it is say an attendant, you quickly look at his hands to see if there is a notice or he has come for something else, and you ignore to look at his face, to look at his dress, to look at his footwear. All these things do not really matter. So, what are you doing at that point in time? When there is a presence of a third person in the class consisting of a group of students and teachers, the third person being the person who has walked in. As per the social facilitation processes, you are focusing on the essential cues and ignoring the non-essential cues. But what happens in the bargain, you tend to lose certain information and there is a change in your behavior. In fact, there are several studies which show how social facilitation occurs not only in people, but also in animals, right down to insects like cockroaches. Even in cockroaches, the presence of few more cockroaches looking on seem to be having an effect on how the cockroach behaves in an experimental setup, which was actually tested and studied in a laboratory. There was another very interesting experiment which was conducted on people, specifically on eating patterns. Now, the eating patterns and eating behavior was studied in 3 different kinds of scenarios. One scenario was a person sitting in front of a TV and eating something. Okay. The second scenario was a person sitting in the presence of a group of friends and eating. The third scenario was the person sitting in a formal restaurant where nobody is known to him or her and he is eating something.